Hi, my name is Josh, and today I'm going to be piggybacking off of Mark Rober's video titled Feeding Bill Gates a Fake Burger to Save the World. I wanted to see the health, physical, and environmental benefits of a dietary omission of beef for 1 year. Now, I know, this isn't a robotics video, and my channel is literally named Josh Builds Robots, but this video is heavily STEM-based, so just bear with me right now. I know I'm a comp sci or a computer engineering guy, and while I do believe in playing to our strengths, for example, mine is robots, I also believe that some hypotheses are far too interesting to not test, and it should also invite and welcome others into a way to branch out and explore new fields.
2020 was a fast-paced year for everyone. On a personal scale, I made it to CIF for wrestling. March is actually when I first began studying computer science and started coding in Python, and I graduated high school, which was a major event in everybody's life. However, on a global scale, things were far, far more bleak. The coronavirus got declared a pandemic. We began the glorious 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and the Amazon had experienced the worst fires it had ever seen at the time. And the blaze continued into 2021. These weren't any discarded cigarettes or any accidental gender reveal parties. No, these were intentional.
The Brazilian president, Jair Bolsonaro, made campaign promises to lift environmental regulations, protections, and restrictions on the most diverse location on the planet, the Amazon rainforest. And naturally, many of us, myself included, consider them to be exactly that, just campaign promises. And you can imagine the international look of horror as the man actually followed through with it. You likely don't even need to imagine it, as the blazes began as recently as 2019. Now, it wasn't until a significant portion of the Amazon rainforest was permanently lost to the sands of time that Bolsonaro came under criticism and scrutiny for allowing the rainforest to be industrialized. And naturally, when under fire, he did what any man in power would do. He deflected. He had claimed that foreign countries had messed up their environment and as such cannot give Brazil advice on what to do. Fair enough. I understand that. We're not clean ourselves. We can't be hypocritical. He claimed that the Amazon rainforest belonged to Brazil. I feel as if it leans more towards the indigenous people currently living there, but, the point is clear. Brazil's GDP means far more than the environment, human life, and animal life ever did to him.
The land cycle is as follows. Chop the Amazon rainforest for logging, use the newly open space for mining, and then the cattle ranchers move in to take advantage of the rich soil that's been untouched for centuries. Since this strengthens the Brazilian economy, and Bolsonaro is a conservative, no surprise there, he quietly lets it be. Never mention it unless it's brought up, that type of thing. Do I agree with him? No, I personally agree more with the RIA, but there is a major problem here that we need to solve because we can't lose one of the most diverse terranean locations on Earth.
Now, it doesn't look like there's much we can do. How can you or I compete with major logging and mining industries? On the surface, it looks almost impossible. And you're right, it is. We absolutely cannot go toe-to-toe. We would get crushed, flattened. The amount of money that they could lobby towards any one government, specifically the Brazilian government, is crazy. We can't raise that much money in just simple people like you and I. However, there is one industry we can completely topple, and we're looking at the wrong industry. We can't stand up to logging or mining industries, but we can stand up to the farming industry, the agricultural, cattle. Cattle farming is responsible for 80% of Amazonian deforestation, as cited by Jesse Hyde of the LA Times. Now, I know I've been ragging on the Brazilian presidency like I live there, but I do have to clarify and get some bonus points here. Not very many, it's still very bad, but only 17% of the Amazon rainforest has been deforested. But 80% of that 17% has been responsible by cattle. That sounds confusing, and it is, so let me try this again. 13.6% of the Amazon rainforest has been completely deforested and wiped out due to cattle farming. Now, just how many acres do you think that is? You're thinking probably 10,000, 20,000 max, right? Wrong. That's 163 million acres. To put 163 million acres into perspective, that is roughly one California and 2/3 of another California. Bolsonaro was elected in 2019. That's crazy. Living in the climate of today, battling climate change and being environmentally friendly are major topics upon everyone's mind. A lot of us, myself included, have something called climate anxiety, or a feeling of being worried, nervous, or scared of the consequences of climate change and what the future holds for our planet. We're losing the coral reefs. We're losing one of the most diverse terranean ecosystems on Earth. Animals are nearing extinction, and how long until we're next? Mark Rober made a phenomenal video in which he explores the benefits of fake meat, as he puts it, from companies like Beyond Meat or Impossible. It's a wonderful video, it's phenomenal, super informative, and is actually the inspiration for this very video. I decided I want to take his advice, and I tried to slim the beef diet as much as possible throughout 2021. And again, I want to see the health, physical, and environmental benefits of a dietary omission of beef throughout the year.
Warning, this is my own personal experiment on my own personal body. Please, for the love of God, do not blindly take this as dietary advice or anything else other than just pure entertainment. Health videos are the one type of video you should never attempt to copycat. So please take any health advice from your doctor and your doctor only. You need to look after your body, as there are numerous downsides to improper care, both physical and mental. I've had my bouts with both types of problems, and I knew what signs to look out for and what ways to properly compensate. I am not a professional, I have never claimed to be a professional, and I will never claim to be a professional. However, I am a scientist, and I have friends that are also scientists. I knew what I was doing, and with the help of numerous biologists and dietitians, I had a team watch my performance throughout the year, and we were all ready to pull the plug had anything gone wrong. Luckily, nothing did. However, your story might end differently. Please be careful, and with that being said, enjoy the rest of the video. So before we get into the meat of the video, I just want to establish some ground rules. I never really intended for this to be a YouTube video. My first video is something I kind of hobbled together in a day in November, and by no means in January 2021 did I have any intention to take this year-long pile of data and aggregate it into something I could present in a video in 2022. It was purely just for my own interest, and as such, I do not have a well-documented timeline, nor do I have a concrete baseline of exactly where I started. To get into the specifics of it, I treated beef like it was an addiction. I was under the assumption that it'd be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to just shut beef consumption off like it was a light switch, and honestly it kind of was. So I took this mentality in a way that I wouldn't beat myself up if my cravings got the better of me, so long as I gave other alternatives a legitimate try. Mental health is extremely important, especially when I am my own test subject, forcing my body to undergo rapid changes with very little adjustment. Chicken, ham, cheese, milk, etc., they were still all on the table. The only prohibition was on beef. Ground beef steak, sirloin ribs, and all of the synonyms for edible product of cow meat. In short, if a cow needed to be, let's say, unalived, as the TikTok kids say, then it was strictly off limits. On the health front, a lot of drastic changes happened early on. For the first about month or so, my digestive system underwent massive changes in which it greatly decreased processing beef and greatly increased the processing of fruits and vegetables. And surprisingly, it's not because I decided to use those as a substitute for beef, but it's because I wanted to use this new diet as an excuse to be healthier, and I had begun consuming more salads and other healthier snacks, things like that. I want to be nicer on my body. Now, by a long shot, February and March were my worst months. I had experienced extreme fatigue, I had felt weak, I had lost color in my skin. It was extremely difficult to push through, and if I was to ever have pulled out, it would have been then. Both my team and I were starting to show concern, but we pushed through. I had devoted myself to science, and I had forced myself to go through each day, since I wanted to see the outcome far, far more than I had wanted to give up. May was ultimately the turning point for me. It was the first month that I had only eaten beef one time. Here's this chart for, I called it beef consumption. I don't have a better name for it. But the point is, I was feeling great in May. My digestive system was fully acclimated, and it wasn't until around then that I was feeling, I think less exhausted is the correct way to put it. An important note that I want to make is that I never actually felt energetic or inherently better than I was before. Oftentimes I felt like lighter, as in I carried less weight, and I felt healthier and things like that. It's very difficult to describe without the other party also experiencing the same thing. Again, I want to stress that I never felt better, but I felt like I think on par is a good way to say it. Beef has natural vitamins, minerals, chemical compounds, all things like that the body does in fact need, and I never actively sought out any supplements or any substitutes or anything. If I were to redo this experiment, I would definitely like to explore the avenue of vitamin supplementation and see if that does in fact make me feel less tired or fatigued or things like that. Because I think the diet was good, and I think that this test was successful. Again, I don't have any dietary certifications. This is not dietary advice. Please do not take this as dietary advice. If you need help, go to a dietitian. But I think this overall experiment was a success, and if I could perhaps make it more of a success, I would definitely like to try it. There were definitely some physical changes as well. Overall, it stayed relatively the same, but a change that I hadn't initially planned for was that I had primarily begun eating chicken rather than vegan or vegetarian alternatives. Since I had begun eating chicken as my main nourishment, there was a massive difference compared to
2020 versus the end of 2021. For example, chicken is much lighter and higher in protein, and from that I had lost muscle mass yet gained muscle definition. I was sitting at around 160 pounds at the beginning of the year. Prior to the experiment, I was eating a lot, going to the gym, I was wrestling, and I was generally an active guy. Within the first 3 months, I had dropped almost 30 pounds. It was a drastic change, and again, I had almost considered canceling had I dropped another dangerous amount of weight. Slowly, I built my weight back somewhat. It's currently January of 2022, and I'm around 145, 150 pounds. I'm roughly halfway through the recovery. I'm not necessarily sure it's something I can recommend. Again, I am not recommending it. I am not a dietitian. And I lost a scary amount of weight, scarily fast. Now becomes the fun part, and also the boring part. It's the math part. Little disclaimer, I am a kid who lives in a storage closet that doubles as his workshop. I am absolutely nowhere close to a scientific or environmental studies lab. These numbers are not concrete numbers, they're not even baselines, they're just general approximations based off of data I found on Google. Any environmental scientists, please start a discussion in the comments or with me on Twitter or Instagram, they'll be linked at the end of the video. I would love to amend my research, and I would always love to make research more accurate. In order to calculate the total carbon output of one cow, there are a few things to keep in mind. Cows have an input and an output. They act as a function in a programming language. The cows take in land, and in turn, they output beef and greenhouse gases. Specifically, we're going to be looking at methane. By taking this into account, let me walk you through the formula. You take X amount of beef that a cow gives. This value equates to the total carbon output per pound of beef. You take the A amount of acres it takes to foster one cow. You multiply it by the total amount of carbon sequestered per acre, which is represented by C. You then take this number and add it to the M amount of methane per cow and multiply it by 25, since methane is generally about 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. This is the carbon dioxide output of one whole cow, so if we divide each side by X, which again is the pounds of beef one cow produces, we then get the formula for 1 pound of beef. In numbers, this boils down to one cow equating to 440 pounds of beef, which has the same carbon output as 22 acres being deforested, which releases 30,000 pounds of carbon dioxide per acre, plus 198 pounds of methane being released in the air, which is multiplied by 25 because it's 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. If we simplify this equation, we get that one cow is equivalent to 664,950 pounds of carbon, or 1 pound of beef is equivalent to 1,511.25 pounds of carbon dioxide. By consuming 1 pound of beef, or roughly 2 double cheeseburgers, you're releasing over 1,500 pounds of CO2 into the air. That is crazy talk. And my question to you is, can you eat that with a clean conscience? I want to formally thank you for both your time and attention throughout this video. This had a little bit more of a serious tone through it, and I thought this was something I should take my time on, or something I should do the right way. It obviously took a lot more time than my regular style of videos, and I honestly really hope you enjoyed it, because it was interesting for me to kind of go out of my norm. If you are interested in future robotic endeavors, please hit up JDR Industries on both Twitter and Instagram. They are my freelancing robotics pages, and we'll be back next time with my usual robotic antics. And until then, you have a wonderful day.